Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first Friday night chill stream in quite a while. I'm looking forward to it to get back on a regular schedule, per se. My Friday nights have been pretty busy lately, so it's going to be nice to slow down a little bit and be with you all for the evening. We're going to be looking at some round three showdown, some weekend golf for the Wells Fargo, a little bit of baseball, and whatever else you all want to get into. But as I mentioned, throughout the week on my main shows for YouTube, it's much more relaxed this evening. You can hear some music going on in the background. As if I was sitting here in silence, I would go absolutely batshit insane. What I lovingly refer to, the second regular to the stream, will probably make an appearance. She's taking a nap at the moment, but I'm sure she'll be waking up here in a moment. But yeah, looking forward to it. So feel free to jump in chat. Would love to have the interaction this evening. Whatever you are wanting to talk about, whether that is lineups for the Wells Fargo for the weekend, some baseball, any of that good stuff, or if you want to take a small preview and look into next week's event, that is also loaded into Fantasy National. But let me get all of my settings set up. As you can see, it's a little bit different of a setup on a Friday night, using my main monitor, if you will. Chat's over here off to the side. Hey, Joey. Good evening, sir. Hopefully your week has went well. I am pretty golfed out, to be honest with you. It's a shame that we didn't place in the scramble last Sunday, but I can't believe that there were that many low scores, to be honest with you, with the conditions that there were. We just couldn't make a putt, and that's what it takes. But thanks for jumping in chat. Hopefully you are ready to get some math nerd on, or just simply relax for the Friday evening and look at some statistics. So let me gather or bring up a couple of different things over here. This will be the course breakdown from Fantasy National of Quail Hollow. And let me bring up ESPN as well, and I will show you what I do when I am looking for some showdown and weekend golf type analysis. But the first thing I think I want to show you all, because it's generally a question whenever I was doing these semi-regularly, how are my lineups doing for the week at the Wells Fargo so far? Prizes were nice. I got a Colts polo, Jordan polo, first Jordan product I've ever owned. Well, that's pretty sweet. Congratulations on, I guess, winning the door prize. And I mean, did your long drive hold up? I can't imagine anyone was going to top that into the wind, because that ball was obliterated. And in the fairway, that was struck well, sir. I'm assuming one of those two was for that. The last I heard, we finished fourth. Is that still correct? Did we tie fourth? And what did we shoot? 13? 13 or 14 maybe? We just needed to hit, like I said, another putt or two, and I think we would have been right there. But anyway, here are the lineups that I submitted this week for the Wells Fargo. 17 lineups, generally about the number I play. I always put in one in the big pitch and putt. I generally do a handful in the dollar short game. Generally 10. I do about half of those. So that's there. The $5 single entry, the $3 3 max, and the $1 single entry divot. I got beat by a guy playing from the senior tees. That's the second time that's happened to be in a scramble at that course. I mean, it'll happen, I guess. Such is the way those things go, I suppose. That's a shame, because you poopied on that ball. That ball went far. But I do have 2 6-6s that I am somewhat excited about, I guess. The heavier shade of green means, the closer to the lead the player is. Terrell Hatton tied for the lead right now. Wyndham Clark tied for the lead. Justin Thomas 1 shot back, maybe 2. Sung Jae 1 or 2 shots back. And then, the lightest green are the players that just, made the cut on the number. Rory, Aaron Rai, Cam Young, who I used just once. And then over here off to the side, you can see the players that I used, how many times I used them, and whether I missed the cut. So really, I'm pretty excited, pretty happy with my results so far this week. There were 2 players that I've been pretty wrong on. Matt Wallace, and I knew that was a pretty big gamble Wednesday evening. Again, he was being helped quite a bit by the fact that he'd only played this event, this course once, but he tied for 6th, so his course value was very, very low, which vaulted him in the rankings. But I thought he might have a decent chance, especially considering how difficult this course was, or is. But it's not really playing as difficult as I thought it would be this week. So he hurt 5 of the 17 lineups that I entered, and then Colin Morikawa. I was just kind of wrong on Colin Morikawa. I was very high on him. Fortunately, I didn't put him in the big pitch and putt lineup, so I still have a chance there. 5 of 6 in the pitch and putt has a chance, I suppose. But those 2 are the big ones that I've been wrong on so far this week. At least of the players that I used. Now the one that I'm very, very excited about, you can see I even came down to 6,300 in Brent Grant in one of my lineups, because I believe I was using Rory and Finau maybe. That's Hadwin. He's in here. So there you go. So Rory, Hovland, Wyndham Clark, and Gary Woodland. So that was a very, very top-heavy lineup. So I went all the way down to 6,300. It was, the player in the very low 6s that I was at least somewhat comfortable with. Thought he might have a chance. But the one player that I am pretty happy with myself, I did throw in Kevin Streelman once in a lineup, and I know we didn't talk about him much on Wednesday evening, or if at all, but generally speaking, Kevin Streelman has played long, difficult courses well in his career. And so when I generated a lineup with Kevin Streelman, I looked at the rest of it, one Tom Kim, which I said I wasn't going to be using a whole lot. That is my only Tom Kim lineup. I mentioned Rory and JT and Griot and how I was high on those guys. Having Streelman at whatever he is, 3 or 4% owned, was pretty enticing for me. Now this is, all of the lineups that I've generated. The ones highlighted in blue are the ones that I used this week. But this is for the big pitch and putt. Kevin Streelman is, he is 0.13% owned. Now granted, he's not in the pitch and putt lineup, but it just gives you an idea, or at least it gives me an idea of how popular players are. So that's probably the one big shock that I'm pretty proud of, the fact that I have Kevin Streelman once and he's played well so far. But other than that, that's a look at the lineups that I have going this week for the Wells Fargo. You can see 3 or 4 of them are pretty well done and over already. This one here, my $1 single entry in the divot. That one is pretty well done. Again, apologies. I'm just fumbling with some chat settings over here if I'm looking off to the side. But I've got some potential here. Again, couple of 6-6s, a lot of 5-6s, including the pitch and putt. If Ricky plays a little better, Griot and Bramlett pick it up on the weekend, I could be looking at a cash in the pitch and putt. But let's get into the round 3 and weekend golf showdown. And I am going to be focusing on weekend golf. That is the pricing that I have gathered in Microsoft Excel for this evening. But certainly a lot of what I will say will apply to showdown. So the first thing I like to do when preparing for weekend golf for showdown is to get a feel for how the course is played, especially historically to its norm. And Wells Fargo, or the Quail Hollow, has played easier this year than it has since I can remember. And we'll talk about the scoring averages here in a little bit. But I also like to look at any par 4s and par 3s that have had eagles, as you can't really count on those throughout the week. And it's kind of like an artificially high... Sorry, that was weird. I wondered where the sound was coming from. It's kind of an artificially high score that the player might have. For example, the player who aced the 17th, you can't really count on that. So, that player is probably at least one stroke, if not two, better than what they should be. Par 4s, usually the same, as that generally indicates a hole out. But these are drivable par 4s. And from what I have seen, none of the players that have the eagle on the 14th made the cut. So I didn't need to go and investigate those, as they didn't make the cut, so we're not going to be looking at them anyway. But the player that did ace the 17th is Mark Hubbard, and he did make the cut. So when we move to this portion of the show, you'll see that I've marked him in orange. Again, artificially high. Oh, there we go. Artificially high in terms of approach and his position. He made the cut on the number. He probably should have missed the cut. Again, he aced the very difficult 17th, so you can't count on that. All right, so what I like to do, especially when preparing for showdown, in showdown, one of the biggest things you need to look at is to get your 3 birdies in a row streak. If you get that on a showdown lineup, you are looking very, very good. And Quail Hollow generally doesn't provide many 3 birdie in a row opportunities. Having said that, there looks to be maybe a couple of stretches here that you could take advantage of. Let's start with the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Now the 9th is a difficult hole. It's playing to 14/100ths over par at the moment. It is a very long, difficult par 4. Historically, that hole has played to 1500, so it is playing slightly easier this year, slightly. But you see the 7th, the 8th, and the 10th are historically some of the easiest holes on the course. So what that means for showdown is that not every single player will be playing 7, 8, 9, and 10 in succession. Half the field will be starting on 10. I think they're going off split tees. I could be wrong, but I believe they're going off split tees. So immediately from the start here, I see an advantage for anybody who is starting on hole 1, as those players are going to have an extra hole here to potentially get their 3 birdies in a row streak, 7, 8, 9, and 10. If they don't birdie 7, which a player should, but if they don't, they still have the 8th, 9th, and 10th to do it. Whereas if a player is starting on hole 10, they're not going to be able to play 8, 9, and 10 and get that. They have to do it on the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and that is a much more difficult ask to do. So already, I am seeing a favor in Showdown for the front 9. Players that are starting on hole 1. The only other 3 birdie in a row opportunity looks to be 12, 13, and 14. Again, a par 3, which is playing slightly over par. It's playing, again, just slightly easier than usual, but the drivable par 4 14th and the par 5 15th. Usually 2 of the easier holes, the 2 easiest holes on the course generally. So there's another opportunity for 3 in a row, but everybody will play 13, 14, and 15 in succession. So there is no benefit there. So decent advantage, I would say, to the players that are starting on the front 9 because of this birdie streak of 7, 8, 9, and 10 that can be accrued. All right, let's go ahead and bring up Wind Finder. And I'm sure you're going to see the second regular and at least the tail here in a moment. Go on. Yeah, go. All right, let's bring up Wind Finder. And we will be looking at Charlotte. Let's take a look at the forecast here. And we'll go to the super forecast. So Saturday, tomorrow looks great. It looks like the rain has moved out, at least of the forecast. Perhaps a little bit of wind picking up early in the afternoon, but nothing too terribly severe. Now, Sunday looks like it could get pretty difficult for the players, especially the championship tee times, as you are dealing with a lot more wind than you have this week, and you're dealing with a lot more gusts as well. So be aware of your forecast. Tomorrow for round 3 showdown looks stellar. Doesn't look like there's any reason to take any kind of favor whether players going out early or late. However, on Sunday, if you're playing round 4 showdown, could be looking at trying to play players that are better in the wind, as it looks like the wind could be picking up on Sunday. Well, there's a look at the forecast. I'll leave that up as well. Of course, we looked at the course breakdown, and I looked at the Wells Fargo from ESPN. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at Microsoft Excel. And I have gathered just the minimal statistics, and I have Fantasy National up over here on the side. So I can bring that over if there are any specific questions that people want to see. But this pricing, again, just to reiterate, this pricing is for weekend golf. So not round 3 showdown. I'm prioritizing weekend golf, so adjust accordingly. But it will still apply. What I like to do is I want to see who has really underperformed their metrics, especially in the putting department. Putting is so fickle, it can come and go. So one of the first things that I like to do is to look at who has severely underperformed their putting metrics and their metrics in general. So you can see Rory has actually underperformed slightly. He came in, or he is 34th of the players that made the cut. He is 34th in putting on fast Bermuda greens, but he is 12 spots worse than that so far this week of the players that made the cut. So slightly underperforming. His irons have been, his ball striking in general has been very, very bad. He's a lot better ball striker than what he has shown, especially today. So you have to think that Rory is going to play a lot better than what he has so far. Cantley has underperformed, especially in the ball striking. Hovland actually has underperformed in the ball striking. 40 spots worse in approach than what his baseline would be. He is 46th out of the... How many players did make the cut? I actually don't know that. 68. So he is 46th out of 68 in terms of strokes gained approach, when he's generally the 6th best of this group of players. So you'd have to think Victor Hovland is going to be much better. Same with Tony Finau. Finau is actually the number 1 strokes gained approach player of the players that made the cut. He has been pretty bad. Now his putting is, okay. He's 5 spots worse, so you don't expect a whole lot of improvement from the putter, but you expect a whole lot of improvement from the irons. Justin Thomas has overperformed his putting. He is generally not a good putter, but whenever he does start rolling it, he is going to be pretty darn good. Let's see here. I wonder if... Let me bring up the leaderboard and see if they have the third round tee times. Yes, they do. And, okay, so everybody is going off hole 1. It does not appear that they are splitting tees. So, much less importance on the first little bit there of the show that I was rambling on about the part of the course, or the hole that a player is starting on. Since they're going off everyone's going off hole number 1. They're not splitting tees. You don't have to worry too much about the 7, 8, 9, 10 versus 13, 14, and 15. So I'm actually going to close that. That makes it a little bit easier. Yeah, we can keep the breakdown up just in case. All right, so we'll look at Fitzpatrick here. Matt Fitzpatrick has been the 48th best putter of the 68 that made the cut, and why I'm only gathering the 68 that made the cut versus the entire field. Well, if you go to if you remember at Fantasy National, I'll show you the live stats tournament page. You see, if a player misses the cut, they will $9.99 them out. Now you can gather the ball striking, gather the tee to green specifics, but if you've missed the cut, they will $9.99 the player out. So that's why I'm having to use just the 68 players that made the cut for comparison purposes. But look at Fitzpatrick. He's generally the second best putter on fast Bermuda greens of the 68. He's been pretty poor. So that right there means I would be very, very interested in some Matt Fitzpatrick, especially since he's overperformed his irons a little bit, but not a lot. He's not been as good around the green, and he's not been as good off the tee either. So Matt Fitzpatrick looks like somebody I would really, really be interested in round 3 showdown and weekend golf, especially weekend golf. Let's see, others here. Homa, Tagala, they've been underperforming a decent bit. Sorry, the second regular is trying to get into trouble. Let's see. We've got Tagala might be a bit interesting, especially since he's been hitting his irons pretty darn well. I'm just so wary of his off the tee game. I don't know. I just wary of his off the tee game. You see, Max Homa's actually overperformed his off the tee by a lot. Underperformed his irons. I guess Homa I'm a little bit more confident in than Tagala. So I'll put Tagala in the lightest of light shade of green. Rory, I think, is going to play a lot better as well. And by the metrics, Hovland should play very, very well moving forward. Tom Kim, not a great putter on fast Bermuda greens. So, I mean, he's slightly underperforming it, but not by a whole lot. He's not particularly great off the tee. Now, his irons have been subpar by his standards, but again, nothing astronomical. So I don't know how I feel about Tom Kim. I think I'm a little wary on there. Terrell Hatton, even though he is co-leading this tournament, you see he's actually underperformed his putting. He's underperformed with his irons. He's actually one of the top, or close to one of the top 10 players in the field in iron play. He's been 4th off the tee, but he's generally 7th. So he's generally pretty good off the tee. Hatton looks like he should probably continue to play pretty well. And especially because you are getting those points for first, I think that's pretty that's pretty appealing. It really is pretty appealing. Like Tommy Fleetwood's the other end of the spectrum. I don't think I would want to fumble with Tommy Fleetwood. He's overperformed his putting. He has been a lot better off the tee this week. And I just don't think around the green is all that much of a factor here around Quail Hollow. It's scrambling, but I don't think it's just around the green. Let's see. Some other players here that we can take a look at. Chris Kirk, somebody I was pretty high on this week. He's still in the top 20. You see he's been second around the green, which he's only overperforming by 1 spot. He's completely underperforming in his ball striking and with the putter. He's not the best on fast Bermuda, but he's certainly not as bad as some of these other players that have made the cut. Like Chris Kirk seems like he should be pretty darn solid for the weekend, I would think. Pretty darn solid. Adam Scott has been a bit of an enigma. You see, he's the number 1 putter, but he's generally pretty good on fast Bermuda, so I don't want to take that away from him. But his irons have been much better than what they normally are. I don't know how I feel about Adam Scott. Somebody like KH Lee looks like they've completely overperformed everything about their metrics. He's not particularly great on fast Bermuda. His irons have been 7th this week. He's generally 47th of the players that make the cut. His off the tee game's not great. I don't like KH Lee at all. I'm out on KH Lee. Connors, the only thing that's saving Corey Connors from a red designation is that he is a tremendous ball striker, and his irons haven't been good this week. So that could save him, although he is one of the worst putters of the 68 that made the cut. So I'm gonna put him in a lighter shade of pink. I can understand why you would want to gravitate towards him, because you would think that the irons are going to be better. But man, that putter is bad, and he's overperformed it. Kind of the same with Bo Hostler. He's been 8th this week, or at least in the top 8 of the players that made the cut. He's not that good of a putter, and he's not that good of a ball striker. He's only underperformed by 2 spots on approach. Like that, to me, that needs to be even much more shaded red. It might be just full red on Hostler. Cam Davis, I don't know. He's underperformed everything but the putter. He generally doesn't play long, difficult courses well. I don't know. I'll give it the lightest of light shade of green because he's underperformed everything else but the putter. I'm not in love with it. Jaeger looks kind of interesting. Severely underperforming the putter. Severely underperforming with his irons. And while he is overperforming these two, you look at where he's been, he's generally a top 25 off the tee player of the 68 that made the cut, and he's pretty darn close to a top 10 around the green player. So Jaeger to me seems like he's somebody that should be pretty good for weekend. Buckley's been an complete inverse of what he is. He's not that good off the tee. He's not that good, he is not this bad off the tee. He's not this bad with the putter on fast Bermuda. But he's not this good of an iron player. He's not this good around the green. Maybe he's just if he's having just a stellar iron week, which happens, then you would want to gravitate towards Hayden Buckley because the putter should normalize back to average. But if he just had a couple of good iron rounds, then you'd want to stay away. So however you want to think about Hayden Buckley, I'm actually going to just leave him alone. Look at JJ Spawn. Spawn's somebody that I would not want to go anywhere near. Completely overperforming everything. Irons, approach. He's even slightly overperforming off the tee. I just don't want any part of JJ Spawn. Dylan Wu, kind of interesting. He's been top 5 putter. Not that good, but he's been really bad off the tee, and he's generally decent. He's been right at his baseline for irons. Dylan Wu might be a tad bit interesting. For as much as I was, trying to pat myself on the back for Streelman, looks like he's overperformed quite a bit. Svensson probably overperforming quite a bit, although his irons have been less than usual, but overperforming the putter, severely overperforming with off the tee. Don't think I want any part of Svensson. Let's see, other players in here, like Bramlett, much better around the green. He's a much better iron player, but he's been a lot better off the tee this week than he normally is. He's one of the worst putters in this group. You can see he's been 51st. He's 51st so far this week, and he's overperformed by 16 spots. So, don't know if there's much that I like with Bramlett there. It's a great story with Jimmy Walker, but yeah, he's underperformed his putter, but I just don't believe in the ball striking. I think that's going to come back down to earth. I can't recommend Jimmy Walker. Tosti. Alejandro Tosti, however you say it, he doesn't have any statistics on Fast Bermuda. I've gone back to 2021. So you do with Tosti whatever you would want. Like, he's underperformed his ball striking, his irons, in very small sample size. And he's been 24th with the putter on Fast Bermuda this week. So do what you will with that. What you will. I just can't give you a definitive one way or the other. I'm trying to see if there's anybody in the 6Ks that I like for weekend golf that you might be able to, kind of use to save some pricing. Like Michael Kim here looks like he's completely overperformed his metrics. Don't want any part of that. For as much as Matthew Neesmith Neesmith's not a good putter, but his best surface is Fast Bermuda, so he's severely underperformed that. But look how much he's overperformed everything else. I can't put him in complete red, but it is not a strong favor for him. Palmer, Stuart Sink, both of these players, I don't think I want any part of those two. Callum Tarrant, underperforming the putter, but he is not very good with the irons, and he's been red hot with the irons this week. I can't get there with him. And these players that have underperformed their putter severely, they've just been overperforming with their irons. So I can't really recommend that you come down here. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Hey, Bruce, Michael Kim, thoughts on Svensson? So, again, I don't know if you're playing round 3 showdown only or weekend golf. I am looking at weekend golf. That is my preferred. That is what I am more comfortable, more confident in. Having said that, with both of them, I am nowhere near. I don't want any part of either of these two players. A lot of it being the fact that they've overperformed their putter, and putting is such a fickle thing. It comes and it goes. And in 4 rounds, you just have to assume that it's going to revert to its baseline. If a player has a good putting week, so be it. Same with, kind of the same with the irons, but the irons are a much more indicative statistic to follow. If a player is a good iron player, generally they're going to compete more on the PGA Tour, and they're going to compete more consistently on the PGA Tour, whereas putting comes and goes. Unless you're elite like Denny McCarthy, Brendan Todd, those players are, the exception to what to how I see putting. So, for example, looking at Svensson here, Svensson has underperformed his irons. Sure. He's generally, 14th? He's been 35th this week. He's underperformed by 21 spots, so he's generally better with the irons, but he's overperformed on every other, major part of the game, particularly off the tee, particularly putting. So, and I don't envision Svensson as a long course type player. So let me bring up his player page in Fantasy National, and I'll bring it over for your all's viewing, and I'll do the same with Michael Kim. So here's Svensson's player page on Fantasy National. The wind will pick up a little bit on Sunday. And you see he is generally not at his best when it's difficult. He's fine, but he's generally better when it's easy, and I expect Quail Hollow to pick up in difficulty especially as the wind starts coming in. And if you look at some of his best performances, they've been on shorter tracks. Now the Genesis is, it's not short, but it's not exactly the longest. The RSM, very short course. The Fortinet is pretty short. The API is long. He played well that week. The Players is pretty short. RBC Heritage is pretty short. His best performances, generally speaking, have been on shorter tracks. The Barbasol, short. Sony is short. Honda is short. He's not a long course type player, so I cannot recommend Svensson. He's more as a throw-in for unique DFS lineups. I mean, sure, and that's why I've been trying to come down into the 6Ks to maybe hopefully help you find some uniqueness down here. But I'm going to be honest, there's not a lot that I like. There's not a lot that I see down here. And for your Michael Kim, his metrics are much more extreme than Svensson's even pertaining to this week. You see, he's been top 15 this week on the greens. He's generally outside the top 50. He's severely overperforming his off the tee metrics as well. If I bring up his player page, Michael Kim, he is a better putter than Svensson, but I mean, look at all the negative in here. He is at his best when it's difficult, if that's something you want to go with, but he's not good at all in the wind, and the wind's coming. Now, top 5, Puerto Rico, Mexico, those are long courses. They're not as difficult, but long courses. But again, these top finishes of his, John Deere, very short. Fortinet's generally short. Barbasol short. Pebble Beach short. Shell Houston, that was actually pretty long, I believe. Yeah. So he's got more of a track record on long courses than does Adam Svensson. I'll give you that. But all I can go by is what he has shown this week versus what his baseline is. And I don't see any reason that he will stay in the top 10 based on what his baseline is and what he's done this week. In fact, I think, that's on Fast Bermuda. So let me bring up or bring over Fantasy National here, and it's going to be kind of loud just because I still have my favorites still up. Is round 3 loaded? No, of course not. That would have been too convenient. Okay, so let's look. I've got this for 2021. Let's look at long courses because he had some amount of success and recently on long courses. Michael Kim. So he's 107th in the field in total on long courses. That's not great. And then if you look at difficult, which I have to imagine Quail Hall is going to get more difficult. Crap, that's on all rounds. That's not what I want. I just want custom date range. January 1st, 2021 on difficult. And if we look at Michael Kim, again, 133rd. I can't get there. But if you feel strongly, then you and I will differ. And this is a chance where you can jump in Sunday night or next week sometime and tell me I was wrong. I'm an idiot. It would be well warranted. Or it's a chance to come back and say, well, you know what, Nick, you were right for once. I can't recommend Michael Kim. And in fact, the lowest that I've seen myself reasonably coming down to is Dylan Wu at 72. And you mentioned, Bruce, that thinking Svensson more as a throw-in for uniqueness. That is something that I will be very, very clear about. I am not particularly great at projected ownerships for showdowns, for showdown and weekend. That's something that I'm just not very good at. What my appeal is, or at least what I'm hoping my appeal is just showing you from a statistician's mind who has underperformed, who has overperformed, and who should normalize. And that's the way I approach it. And if I pick the 6 chalkiest people, so be it. If that's what I think is going to happen, I think they're going to be good for the next 2 days or whatever. But anybody highlighted in green, especially heavy green, I think is going to be pretty darn good the rest of this week. Like, for example, look at Matt Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick is generally the second best putter of the 68 that made the cut on fast Bermuda greens. He's been 48th. And he's underperformed some of his other metrics as well. Now, he's overperforming the irons a little bit, sure. But I have to think that Fitzpatrick's going to finish better than T29 based on what I'm seeing from his baseline and what is happening this week. Yeah, always. I mean, feel free to jump in with more questions. I'm not always going to be right. I'll put that out there for sure. But this is how I approach looking at showdown and weekend golf. Since 7,200 here is the lowest that I am really comfortable going, and I suppose we could really stretch if we want to come into the 6Ks. But if 7,200 is the lowest that I'm willing to come, then using a Rory, who I'm pretty high on, I think he'll play well, or Rory McIlroy, or however I spell that, I don't even know. It's going to be really hard to fit a Rory into these weekend golf lineups with us bottoming out at Dylan Wu. We can do it, but it's going to be difficult. So Dylan Wu is somebody that I am pretty high on. Stefan Jaeger should be a lot better based on what I'm seeing from him. He's been the second worst putter of the group that made the cut, and he's generally in the top 16 or so, 18. And he's severely underperformed his irons as well. So Stefan Jaeger, I think, should play a lot better. I'm high on Chris Kirk. Again, generally a much better putter than what he's showing, and he's been a much better ball striker lately than what he is showing this week. And perhaps it is just a down week ball striking for him, but I'm willing to take that chance. Which leaves us 8,500. Not a whole lot in that range that I like. I mean, I really like Terrell Hatton. Yeah, I suppose Ricky's okay. I mean, he's slightly underperformed his putting. Slightly. He's generally not that bad off the tee. He's not that bad. He's been very good with his irons this year. Ricky should probably be highlighted. So that's, if you're looking at a Rory, I can't imagine going much lower than Dylan Wu and feeling confident with it. And I almost have to think you have to come all the way down to the 8s. But as you were saying, Bruce, like, I mean, if you're higher on Michael Kim or Adam Svensson, we'll throw in Svensson. I think of those two, I think I'd be much higher on Svensson than I would be on Michael Kim. If you're comfortable coming down to a Svensson, then Rory is much more palatable. Or palatable, however you say that, I don't know. That gives you a lot more room to maneuver in here. You might even be able to go to a Victor Hovland. I'm going to use a Matt Fitzpatrick, try to save a little bit of pricing because you're already into the high 7s. But you might be able to squeeze in a Hovland or perhaps a Cameron Young, maybe. Let's see. Other players that I think are lineup shells or lineup constructions I think could be useful. If I just do my what I think's the most who I'm most confident in, it's Hovland, Fitzpatrick. Man, Homa's tied for 13th, but you have to think that his irons are going to be a little bit better, don't you? I would think. He is 7,900 though. Chris Kurt probably in here. I'm pretty high on Stefan Jaeger. So 8,000 per. I think Terrell Hatton. And 77. Ew. I don't know. Maybe Cam Davis. He's overperformed his putting, but he's underperformed everything else. I mean, he's not that good of a putter, but he's not that bad of an iron player. Maybe Cameron Davis. I don't love it, but there's another look at a shell of a lineup. Oh shoot! What did I do? That's much more balanced in nature. Yeah, throw in any questions that you have with players, and we'll see if we can't discern how we feel about them. Throw them in a lineup. I tell you what, now that I'm looking at it, like Alex Smalley could be somewhat interesting. Maybe. I'm not in love with it, but he's right at his baseline for iron play. He generally hits a lot of greens. He's generally right at his baseline for putting. I actually don't hate Smalley down here now that I look at it a little more closely. Okay. So maybe my bottom would be Smalley, and we can go Rory, Victor. I've used Jaeger in both lineups, but I would probably use Jaeger in this. I've used Hatton in both lineups. I would probably use Hatton. I'm trying to make a stars and scrubs type look of a lineup. We've got 8,000 per. Anybody else in the low 7s that could be mildly interesting? Maybe Griot. Yeah, okay. Griot could be somewhat interesting. I don't know if I'm as confident in him as I am in Jaeger. But you see, he's been the 5th best iron player. He's generally a pretty good iron player anyway. So he's generally 20th. He's not that bad off the tee. Okay, maybe Griot. If I throw in him, what's that leave us with? 84. We've used him 3 times. Hey, James. Thanks for jumping in chat. It was really good. It was much, much needed. You can probably see I got a lot of sun. I'm peeling on my nose and all that stuff, but a good time with a bunch of good people. The golf was... I played well. I lost my first Ryder Cup match, though, in 2 years. I was a little pissed off about that, but that's the way things go. I certainly won a lot of money down there, so I can't complain about that. It was just a good time. It was just a lot of fun. But yeah, thanks for jumping in chat. You caught the Friday night chill stream, which we're going to be trying to get back into semi-regularly. My Fridays are pretty busy in the summer, but we're going to try to do our best to get some showdown lineups, some weekend golf lineups together. You've got 3 lineups here. You've got kind of a stars and scrubs look there. That now that I look at it, I don't hate Alex Smalley down here at 6,500, but there's not a lot I like in the 6Ks for weekend golf. I just don't. Really, the most comfortable I'm going to is Dylan Wu at 72. I do think Rory is going to be much better this weekend, but fitting Rory at the lowest of a 72 is going to be pretty difficult. Let's see. We've done a Hovland, Fitzpatrick, Terrell. Let's see if we can't figure out something else here, like maybe a Tony Finau. He's not that good of a putter, but his iron play has to be a lot better than what it is shown. So maybe we try to do a Victor, Tony, Max Homa, Chris Kirk, maybe. Looks like you're going to have to drop into Alex Smalley, which isn't an issue. You can use Grillo or Jaeger in this, and then, well, if I could spell, Grillo and then Smalley. There's another look at a semi-stars and scrubs, I suppose. Loading up in the 9s and upper 8s with Hovland, Finau, Homa. Chris Kirk, who, for all intents and purposes, I will call an 8. He's at 7,800. Don't hate that. Don't hate that at all. Let's see. Somebody else too, like Gary Woodland. He's been really bad on the greens, and he's generally not the best, but he's certainly not one of the worst in the field. His ball striking is superb. Don't hate Gary Woodland either. Now, around the green, he's overperforming, but I don't know how much around the green really is going to matter at Quail. I don't think it's mattered much the first 2 rounds. So Gary Woodland could be somebody else that you want to throw in some of these lineups. Like the last lineup we just built, you could go, instead of Kirk Grillo, you'd go something like Woodland. Dylan Wu might be a little bit too expensive. Maybe it's right on the number. I can't remember. But that's another option that you have there. But just because you just joined, there's a look at what my 17 lineups are looking like for the week. I do have 2 6 of 6s. This one, I mean, is by definition a 6 of 6, but it's not looking the strongest because most of those players either made the cut on the number or at -2. But I do have some very promising 5 of 6s. The one lineup that I always put in the pitch and putt has Hovland and JT and Ricky, who are playing well. The miscut is Shane Lowry. I wasn't exactly excited to use Shane Lowry, but the lineup generated that way. He was also, I don't know, like 6% or something. Yeah, 4.75%. So I just, I took a chance. I didn't like it, but I took a chance. Didn't turn out for me, but 5 of 6 that, has decent chance of cashing. A very strong 4 of 6. That's going to be a cash, maybe. 2 miscuts hurt, but a very strong 4 of 6. Some strong 5 of 6s in here. So I've got potential. There's a look at my lineups. I've been wrong on Matt. I was wrong on Matt Wallace. I knew it was going to be a little bit dangerous. He was right. He really catapulted in my rankings due to the fact that he had only played Quail Hollow once. He played it well, so his course value was very low. But I thought he might be able to carry the momentum he had from the Corrales and a couple of these other performances over. Didn't work out. So I was wrong on Matt Wallace and I was wrong on Morikawa. I thought Morikawa would play pretty darn well here, and he didn't. So those are the two that have really killed me in most of these lineups. Like these others, like Jordan Spieth, I used once. I don't mind him missing the cut. Yes, he missed. I threw him in a lineup, so it's going to destroy a potential 6 of 6. But I really only used him for the coverage as opposed to being high on him. Jason Day, I used once just for the coverage. Brent Grant, I had a very top-heavy lineup with Rory, Victor, Wyndham Clark, Gary Woodland, so I needed to drop way down to the 6s. I don't hate, or I don't, consider that a huge miss. So I'm pretty happy with the performance of the player pool that I have. Really. I really do wish I had more Terrell Haddon, considering I was so high on him. Just didn't turn out that way when I generated lineups. I was pretty low on Sung Jae. I have him once just as coverage. But I was really high on Gary Woodland, pretty high on Ricky, really high on Griot. So it's turned out. Okay. I've got a lot of potential. All right. Let's see. What's DraftKings? Hey, look at that. One of my baseball teams tonight is in the top 50 in a big GPP. So that's going well as well. Oh, that team's making a whole lot of points. What in the world? Who's going off for this team? Oh, okay. Yeah, so both of my pitchers have done well. So here's the lineup that I'm talking about. I used Kodai Senga and Bailey Ober. Those guys have been very, very good. Hey, there we go. 2 of my ups for the evening that I posted on social media. 3 up, 3 down. I was up on Javi Baez. He's got 21. I was up on Ramon Laureano. He's hit a solo homer. So 2 for 3 in that regard. I like it. I can't remember who my third up was. I don't know. I've been focused on golf now. But James, how's your week been? I hadn't seen you in a while since we've been missing the Friday night chill streams. But there's a look at the lineups that I have. Weather's nice. Well, good deal. Glad to hear it. Have you been able to get away from the desk, play a little bit of golf or other hobbies Trying to get a few rounds in. Yeah. Normally on Friday nights I'll play in a fun scramble at our local municipal. But with the amount of golf that I've played the past week and a half, I'm ready to take a break for a week or two. I want to get back into the showdown stuff, especially since seemingly like the showdowns and the weekend golf, like the Friday night chill streams, like the PGA has been delayed, so it feels like we haven't even had the chance to do it. And the times that they weren't, I've been busy. So I want to try to get into that, or doing this consistently more. I'll be doing baseball and stuff. Like my baseball season starts at the end of this month, so that'll start cutting into some time too. So I want to try to take advantage of every opportunity I can, especially for showdown. Yeah, I mean I was doing all right at the end of the fall portion of the schedule. Like the CJ Cup, I remember you hit really, really big on some lineups that we were working through. I feel like there was another tournament that was a dominant performance. I can't remember. I've slept since then. But yeah, I'm gonna try to get this back into a semi consistent schedule. Like I said, with my baseball season starting soon, it might be a little bit more hit and miss. The Live Tulsa tickets aren't priced. Oh, when is that? Is that next week? Because I know things have been hitting social media quite a bit about it. Next weekend, yeah. Ground passes 55. I am not. I don't know if that's good or bad because I don't have anything to compare it to. I've never been to a professional golf event. I would love to. It's just something that I haven't had made a priority yet. That doesn't sound terrible. But again, I have nothing to compare it to, so that my opinion should be very moot. Do you have the lineups that you are wanting to look at for the Wells Fargo? Do you want to try to work through any more? I've done 4 of them. Not too much I can do with baseball since most of the games have already either finished or are underway. I could look at a little bit of tomorrow if you wanted to. But otherwise, I think that's what I have for in terms of a Friday night chill stream. But if there are questions or if there's anything else that anybody wants to talk about, throw it in chat. I'll be more than happy to stick around. Whether we make more lineups, look at the Byron Nelson next week. I'm just kind of taking a look at my baseball team right now. I've still got a lot of innings left, so I could move up here. I'm getting a little excited for this baseball team that I put in. Yeah, the Byron Nelson is next week, and that has been loaded into Fantasy National. We could take a look at it if there's any interest, or we can save it for Sunday evening in the initial research. Of course, I've got my daily 3 up, 3 down over on Twitter. If you are interested in baseball content for anyone out there, I've been doing that, and I've got some success going with that, especially lately. So that's been good. I guess we can end the night off looking at the Byron Nelson field, at least. Just get a quick gauge and see who's in it. So let me do all the filter crap here before I bring that page over. All right. Byron Nelson field. Again, I'm not going to go too much into this. Just to give viewers a sense of who is in the field. Scotty, Jason Day, Jordan Spieth, Terrell Hatton. Those are the biggest names. Looks like Højgaard, Hideki. Surprising to see Hideki, considering this is a designated event. He was off injured this week, but he's going to try to play next week. I don't know how. I imagine he probably withdrawals. So it looks like doesn't look like the strongest field, but it's not an alternate style field either. You do have Scotty and Jordan Spieth, Terrell Hatton, Højgaard, Hideki for now, Tom Kim. Okay, so not the worst field. All right, but I think that's going to do it. James, do you have, there's 4 lineups for you. If you want to jot those down, make some notes for your round 3 showdown and weekend golf endeavors for the week. Do note that they are not going off split tees. So everybody starts on hole 1. So there's no need to focus on whether a player starts on 1 or 10. They're all going to be starting on hole 1. There is the forecast for tomorrow and Sunday. You might want to take a look at some of your top wind players for round 4 showdown. There's your forecast for those 2 days. And then we'll leave you off with that for your round 3 showdown and weekend golf lineups. Yeah, that sounds good. As always, James. James and everybody else, please let me know via social media, in the comments of videos, however you want to get a hold of me to let me know how things are going, whether you're winning, whether you want to cuss me out for recommending Colin Morikawa when he misses the cut. It's all deserved, especially if you're winning. I want to hear if you're winning and doing well. That way I can shout you out Sunday nights for the initial research of the next week's tournament. But Joey and Bruce and James, thanks for jumping in chat. Always appreciated. I'm glad I was able to get on line for a little bit tonight. Try to make this more semi-regular for a Friday night chill stream. And thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel. Always appreciate it. Love doing what I do, taking a long statistical look at sports and trying to win some money. So for all of your showdown, weekend golf, baseball, and Kentucky Derby wagers and contests that you enter for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.